Second.
Go.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Done? Okay. Hello from Byflow Dynamics and welcome to this second week of our new series that take place every day at 12
Hello, Jenna.
p.m. How are you?
Good, good, good. You?
In this session,
Okay, okay.
I'm doing great. Days are getting closer, so we have a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
You know, the final, all those things. But today, I want to talk about the present that we're going to give everybody out there, our followers, our clients, and our future clients. That is going to be, we're going to begin to promote this afternoon our free advisory, right? And probably not everybody is familiar with what can you get from an advisory call from our part, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the advertisement that we are doing is that you get a free advisory call with one of our experts. Either can be you, maybe me, maybe both, depending on the domain
Mm-hmm.
that the person who is interested in the phone call advisory. So the first question that we I would like to address for everybody out there. So see you can see our time limited offer is, for example, the advisory call is why somebody out there should get the advisory call or should do pursue the to do an advisory call with our team.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so as we go, so last week we went through a few case studies, and also this week
Mhm.
also we go through some more case studies that we have been working on. And actually
Yep.
today I also have a plan to go through one of the case studies for the HR departments for people analytics.
Okay.
So
That would be good. Yep.
so we can do a little bit of both.
Yep.
So yeah, so the we'll have maybe like an overview of that project that we did on people analytics. So how AI can help organizations,
Okay.
usually larger organizations, mostly in the corporate sector. But the case that we actually worked on was how to bring people analytics into the higher education. So how the universities can actually learn from what the corporations are doing to optimize some of their resources to help students like graduate at a higher rates, improve their
Yeah.
like after graduation, their careers and hiring and so on. Okay,
Okay. Perfect.
so now to go into the advisory session and more a little bit about like what we do. Um, so we have a branch where we build products where the client already has an idea, somebody else found the signal, and then they are ready to build a product.
Okay.
There, more or less, we're going through a 3 week program where if you do have the idea or you want to get some training, and then you can sign up for one of our programs. So the first week it's some training, and then you start building something based on what you have. But a lot of the times you may not actually need to build something. It might be more on advisory basis. For example, like going into 2020 and you have a budget for analytics and for AI. So what kind of people you should be hiring, what kind of team you should be building, what kind of products, what is achievable, what is not, like what is easily achievable based on what your resources are, and what is like a difficult project.
Okay.
So that's a chance for us to introduce ourselves. So basically, like through if we do a call, it's we go through the process based on something that you may have in mind to qualify your ideas and give you some advice on where you should put your resources.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you have an ongoing project and you just need a second opinion. So you've been working on something for a while, you just want to get a second opinion. Or you're wondering about an exploratory phase where you have a data set and you want to see whether we can actually jump on that data set to find a signal for you. So basically, that's the idea. It's that okay. So we do that first phase, and then we see whether we are a fit to work together in the long run. So like,
I think
mm-hmm.
I'm sorry for
Yeah,
interrupting you, but I think that that one is really, really important. I mean, in the sense that with this advisory call, for example, when you approach us, we know that maybe is we cannot be the team that you can feel comfortable, or either of us, or we cannot do anything very extreme for you, and that's fine. It's also good to know,
uh huh.
right? We are not gonna lie to anybody or cheating on anybody out there to, oh no, we're gonna invent
But in
things just
general,
to
I
keep
I think
up.
in general the answer has been that yes. Actually, from my experience, like I have been
Yeah,
thrown
no,
into different projects that
yeah,
even
yeah,
like starting from scratch. Like if
yep,
the need is there and if the team is there and if the will is there, uh,
yeah,
but more or less like setting how to set the expectations. Like what is the realistic in a short term and
exactly.
what is realistic in the long term. Uh, and but also like ongoing projects in that there's a mismatch if there's a mismatch between something that you are building and the business side, like how to make that more cohesive. Okay.
Ah, okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. So did you have any more
So,
questions on this, Gina, or should I move on to the
and no, basically, I think it could be just good, like for example, how to get the this free advisory call. We're gonna be posting online in our social media a link to a form that you have to fill.
uh,
In order, we're gonna ask for the information of the person who is interested, the email and the phone number, so we can contact you. The phone call, I mean, the call, it doesn't have to be like in the phone. It can be also Skype or other suitable medium to contact the person. We're going to contact them. And
but yeah,
of
we
course,
prefer
we
Skype
would
or
like
call,
to know
so it has to be
Skype
yeah.
or, and we would like to know in advance a little bit about the business or the product, or the things that you want to solve. That will help us more or less to give you a better advice. And that's it. You only have to click on the link, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna call you, and you can get the advisory call. And after the advisory call, then we can see what is the then what are the next steps to take. I think this is really nice, really good. Also, I try to encourage, of course, the people who is already familiar with the with AI products and data science products. But also, I would like to see people who they don't know much a lot of what AI can do for them. I think it's really important for people who is not familiar with all the things that we can provide for them, or AI, or data
Yeah, you're right.
science.
So that's also something like so even if you have no, but you're just wondering about you have a ongoing you have an ongoing either like a product or a research, and then you're just wondering like is there something that can be added into your existing product,
Exactly.
and
Yeah, that's
yeah,
my push for the people who has no idea. Of course, the people who already have ideas, they are more than welcome. But I one of my agendas is try to convince people that this is not so expensive, or a black box where nothing else, nobody else knows, and we want to teach them, and we wanted to show them, right? What are all the advantages on implementing on implementing AI products. But I think that is my wish for everybody out there who is not familiar with this, that they take the risk. They can have a phone call. It's free, so you have nothing to lose. On the contrary, I think you will be very, very happy with our advisory. And at the end, I'm pretty sure, as Andy said in his opinion, at the end you will be really, really happy, and you will hire us, and you will want to work with us. We are that good, I'm pretty sure. So I think that's it for the advisory call. And now let's go for the people analytics that actually that can help a lot of companies out there. And in this time we have it towards higher education. And let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, so this was one of the cases where I've seen a lot of cases from in people analytics being applied, but mostly at the corporate level. And it
Okay.
has a lot to do with hiring practices. So the first phase, for any corporation, like the people, the budgeting, a lot of the budgeting goes towards people, right? So how do
Hmm.
you track things? How do you hire the right people, and then how do you move them around in different departments so that they can keep adding value into your business?
Okay.
And it's a relatively new field. Some of the companies that are doing it well, I think, are like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. So other banks are actually doing it quite well. And some of the things that they have already seen is that in general, they tended to hire mainly from certain universities. So it was very standard for them to go into certain Ivy Leagues and to set up shop and to hire from those
Yeah,
universities.
of course.
And so that was one of the things. And then like some of the hypotheses that they have raised, then it's like, okay, is this something? Can we measure this? So they put some metrics in place, and one of the things that they have found is that yes, they should continue hiring people from those Ivy Leagues, but for specific departments, not for all of the departments. So for specific departments,
Okay.
they tend to add a lot of value, and then there's other departments where it actually it worked better for them to hire from state and from like city universities. So that was something from them that they actually were able to like once they were like diving deep into these things and figure out. So things that you look into, it's actually someone can come in, offer a lot of value short term, but is that person going to stay with the department long term? Are they looking to just move to New York
Right.
first, for example, get whatever they can get, but then they know that they can get like 10 other jobs, so then they will like go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that was something that
Okay.
you can like start measuring. So like where you should hire, like what companies, and maybe it's not just like just one or two university, but it's per department. So like narrowing it down instead of saying that okay, these are the 10 universities that we mainly recruit from, in more into these are the universities that we recruit for the business sector. These are the universities we recruit for analytics, and these are the universities that we go for data science and for AI and so on.
Yeah.
So kind of like going into that level. And okay, so basically this data science example goes into the human resources.
Okay.
So basically, that's what people analytics is. It's a data-driven approach to inform the HR practices, programs, and processes. So any techniques, so some of them are experimental. So you can set two different groups, and then you can start measuring them. And yeah, so basically, like how keeping an eye on how to help your departments grow. And some of the things that are being used for is like quantifying the length of time it takes to fill a position. Because if you know that going into 2020 you have 100 open positions, getting a better idea on how
Mm-hmm.
long it takes to fill those positions. Turnover rate, like this is huge. The turnover rate per
Yep.
department. The other one that then you can go further into, it's the revenue per employee. A lot of the companies,
Okay.
especially like the
Yep.
consulting companies, they do this a lot. It's like kind of like getting an idea that for an employee that you bring in, how much revenue is that person bringing in? Um, so that's usually like a good idea to know for like setting up some benchmarks for how many people you should be hiring.
I have a question
Uh huh.
because a lot of mostly I believe most of the big companies they already have like a department that is in charge of that. Like at the end of the semester or the year, they qualify their employees, right? Like how much let's say on sales, how much clients did you
Yeah, but
bring
those are
in, and
the
so
easy
on and so on.
cases.
So how can
Those are the
we?
easy cases. But how do you do it for someone who's working as a data engineer? Because they're not in the sales department.
Okay, perfect.
That's the
yeah,
how do you do it
those
for
are
someone who's
then
working like someone that is not directly related to that. So that's when it gets yeah,
to the sales. Yeah,
because
for
of course those are
example,
easy.
sales is really, really, really yeah.
And
Okay,
so yeah,
perfect.
then the other thing that we mentioned, the recruiting practices, like which universities to recruit from, like Ivy Leagues versus state versus city, like per department. And so now the idea was like, how do you take some of these practices and see if we can actually go into the higher education? Like, how can higher education learn from what the corporate world is doing?
Uh,
And
exactly, because not always is the same. Like the syllabus of certain classes, for example, during college, uh, the world is moving really, really fast about the skills and capabilities of a person should have in order to
yeah,
be hired, right? And in my idea, I'm a teacher, I'm a professor in some colleges. So what I think sometimes is that they are really like behind a little bit, like 5 or 10 years behind of the needs of the real world
yeah.
outside. And
So
of course, there are some things that you have to learn. Like I don't know, if you are a physicist, of course you have to learn physics and mathematics. But in order to get land a good job, you will need extra stuff
yeah.
that maybe the school are not ready to provide, and the idea is to help them to begin to provide those services, right?
So so a few things so there's a few things. So one is like how do you succeed in the job market? How do your students succeed in the job market? So that's one
Mm-hmm.
thing that you can optimize for. Uh, there's other things like predicting student success, improving graduation rates. Graduation rates and student retention, like this is a very big problem for a lot of the city universities where you have more non-traditional students where maybe they are a first generation that actually is going to college. So they
Okay.
have different problems in this sense. So that's very important for them to improve the graduation rates and the student retention. Um, the personalizing of the learning process, that's a little bit like it's going into building certain things, but we didn't do so much work on that space.
Okay.
And then, yeah, so that's what we meant by measuring the performance beyond the scores. So, like after graduation, basically.
Okay.
And so the traditional data, so where data science actually comes in is like how do you like traditionally you have internal people who analyze these kind of data. So you have the identity of the students, and then you have their grades, you have attendance, demographic, and so on. So traditionally you have this data set, but like how do you to go further? What you don't have in here, you're missing the bigger picture in that what else is going on with these students. Like you don't have that data. Like how many jobs are they having? Where do they go after they graduate? If they take a break, what are they doing? And then they come back. So that's what we actually looked into in taking this data set and
Mm-hmm.
actually combining it with data that you can subtract from, you can scrape from LinkedIn. So LinkedIn
Okay.
is very powerful in that, so you can go into
Yes.
LinkedIn and you can do some scraping, and you can track. So you can see that okay, if someone graduated with a bachelor's from City University with computer science degree, like where do they go? Because there's a big push right now towards, and I have different slides for that, but uh, there's somewhere else. So now the idea is basically to bring the data that they have internally, but to combine it with external data sources like a LinkedIn and Glassdoor. So Glassdoor to get an
Okay.
idea about salaries, and then LinkedIn to get an idea about what kind of positions they are taking on. And the
Okay.
reason that we actually jumped into this was that there was there is a big push towards pushing a lot of the undergraduates now towards computer science degrees. So a lot of initiatives towards doubling the number of majors for computer scientists, for developers, because there's a need for developers. That's where there's a lot of
Yeah.
need.
Because a lot of the work is taking place in on the internet, basically,
Well,
and
building
with
applications.
data,
Yeah,
building applications and data
yeah.
and that. It's, yeah.
This has been a big initiative for a lot of the universities. In so like now, how do you go from what you have into like can you increase the number of students? That was the initial project that we started looking into, but we kind of the more that we were digging into the data, we actually were very surprised to find out as because they were pushing to double the number of students graduating with a computer science degree. But what we actually found was that the graduates with the computer science degrees from these universities, some of them are not doing very well. So we found that a lot
Okay.
of them were actually, so they were getting degrees in like web development, and what we found was that they were actually underemployed. A lot of them, it looked like they were fully employed, but a lot of them were working either at a library or at a university, like helping like manage some of their small databases or their website, like building small pages. Uh, but it's
Okay.
not the picture that you would expect in this day and age where like there's a high demand for computer scientists, for developers, but then there's a mismatch between what they are producing and the need in the job market.
And by any chance, did you discover why?
Yeah, so we started looking into that, and because those computer science departments, they are not. So that was the first thing to find, and then the why. They're not updated. The computer science departments, they are teaching as if it was 1999.
Ah,
Very heavy on C and C++, and not so much on databases,
seriously?
cloud computing, some machine learning. Um, so
Wow.
that was, and then yeah, I wish I had the other, but okay. So that was actually interesting. So you start with, so it took us into this direction on the why. So you start looking into the say what you are producing, and then where's the need. So there's more that you can do with LinkedIn data. So you can pull the data from LinkedIn, you can pull the data from job postings, and then you can see what is the demand for skills, like technical skills.
Okay.
So over time, you can see where we are. You can actually some of that you can also get from Glassdoor. So
Mhm.
now what you can see going on ongoing basis is like, okay, what are employers looking for? So you can do this on your own. You can scrape so any job posting that is looking, say, for a computer scientist, right?
Like, for example, you can get that data, I imagine, from Indeed, for
Yes.
example.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so you can get something like that, but even like a job posting itself, like the raw data, you can take that and then you can do a little bit of text mining, and then
Okay.
you have a database like, okay, these are the skills that these employers are looking for someone with a computer science department. So what we found was
Okay.
that a lot of the growth has been happening a lot towards cloud computing, towards some machine learning, some data science skills, like not so heavily, but like just to be exposed in it. And what we found from
Okay.
these students, like skills that were like actually missing, um, they didn't have much exposure in cloud computing in general. They didn't have much exposure in any of the machine learning courses.
Algorithm.
So the first level then would be to first, so yeah, diagnosing like first what you have with your own students, and then first fixing it, and then going into the doubling.
Okay.
So that's what we were suggesting is that, okay, like first before you even go into this phase, like let's see like what else we can do to improve the existing department. And then the next level was actually you can double, so you get an idea of like of where the need is, but to fill that need, you don't need to necessarily just have more computer scientists. You could work with your existing departments. So you could work with the math department, you could work with the physics department, with the English majors, and
Yeah.
see that, okay, these are the departments that we have. These are core departments, because building a new department takes time.
Is
And by the time
exactly,
you
yeah.
build it, then maybe it has moved into something else.
And for example, in my experience, there's a lot of people inside the departments, in every of these departments that you are mentioned, like for example, in physics, mathematics, computer science, they already have some professors or some people working on machine learning, data science, and all these kind of things. The problem is that they don't have like a class, in the syllabus, or things like that. But there are people already in these departments that they already have knowledge and
Yeah,
the
so there
advantages
are
of this.
knowledge, so there are existing things. So they do have talent somewhere in the, but now,
Exactly.
but the first level is like, how do you take someone with an English major, for example, or someone with a history degree, and just so that they get enough tech skills. The thing is that,
Ah,
like,
okay.
you don't actually need as much as you think. You just need what is relevant now. So you can easily close that gap with either external courses or having something on the side that
Seminars
can
or
be
so
built
on.
very quickly.
Yep.
Because actually, you don't want to go too heavy in one direction either. So you don't want to go all in building, in having like large departments for developers, because I think in 5 years we're going to have not so much a need for
Another
developers
problem.
because a lot of things will be automated.
Yep.
Uh, but then you will need people who understand ethics. You will need people from the philosophy departments,
Exactly.
from sociology departments who build algorithms, but then you also have to worry about the ethics of it.
Of it. Yep.
So you don't want to go too heavy into one of those departments. So how do you move your university forward without losing your core values? So you still should teach the fundamentals, the history, the sociology, the math, the statistics.
Ma- Yep.
And then the rest is like 20%. Like, how do you keep adding that 20%? But having a system in place that you continuously figure out like where you should be working, like what skills you should be moving into. Um, what else was there? It was actually very interesting. It's
It-
actually very interesting. I want to work more in these things. Um,
No, it's important for, I mean, I imagine that probably some of the big or Ivy League universities, they already have a plan developing, right? Because they have the money, they have the resources, and so on. But I think this is very important in public education, for
the
example.
thing is that
I think,
they do have the public universities. They do have. I've seen resources that go into nowhere, where like
yeah,
they will get there's a grant that comes in, and you're just doing more of the same. So like if you just got a grant, but then you blindly spend it in something that you have no data to back it up.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
useless.
So
Yeah,
like so how do you go by like so you have a new grant, you've kind of like figured out like where you should, you kind of have an idea, but then how do you back it up with data? So that's more or less the idea. And so yeah, you don't want to get too caught up on what is hot at the moment, but you do want to incorporate that into your departments because it's also about the brand. The brand of the
yeah,
university
of course.
sometimes it's like, okay, like we get it that these skills are important and we are incorporating them. We are being active into adding them into our curriculums, but also without losing the fundamentals of what the role of the university is. So that in the long term,
Exactly.
even when these skills are replaced, there are certain things that we are always going to need, like logic and solving problems and those kind of skills.
Yeah, that one is a really important.
And but
Yeah,
the rest is actually, to be honest, like the rest is actually it's easy. Like it's easy to actually bring someone who's a good mathematician or someone who has like really good writing skills, and then positioning that person to succeed in the age of AI. Because in the age of AI, it's very important to like someone who understands algorithms. So if you have someone who can write well, but then at the same time they take a few courses in AI, the value of that person increases dramatically. They can do business development. They can do a lot in a company.
exactly.
And yeah,
So, for example, I have a final question. Do you remember that when we talk about the advisory for data scientists or people who wants to become a data scientist, we talk about the soft skills that they need to develop. Are those included in this kind of studies?
wait, say it again. Uh-huh.
The soft it also includes in this study, like they be included. I mean, because
Yeah, so
it
you
is
do
what we've
see.
been
So yeah,
talking.
the same thing. So when you scrape those reports, so when you do some data scraping, and the data scraping is for, so you do the data scraping for the job postings, and then you start seeing that,
Uh-huh.
okay, like you're looking for someone who can write, and then for someone who also understands algorithms. So that's where you get all of
Ah,
this
okay.
information from.
Ah, okay, perfect.
And
Okay.
the from
Mm.
and then from my perspective, like having like worked in different projects and like kind of like seeing what kind of skills like I'm looking for, like yes, you do need developers, but in the consulting world, for example, you need a developer who can communicate and who can write and who can give some presentations. um,
I have an anecdote about that. I have a friend that he works in a company. I'm not going to say the name of the
uh-huh.
company, but it's a big company. And they have their team of the data science team and analytics and so on and so on. And at some point, I don't know, some manager asked them to do certain stuff about a project, right, relating the data of the products that they sell. So they did it really fast, and they did it really good. And the time that they have to deliver to develop these things, they didn't appear to the reunion, to the meeting. And then the boss went there, and they asked like, what is going on? It's supposed that you have to give us all the results that you found and everything. And was like, oh no, we are good doing it, but we don't like to present.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And it is a big company. It's not,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it is impressive. For me, it was impressive knowing the company and the reaction and the response of the team who is in charge of it. I don't remember very well if it was the data science team on the company. And they said, no, no, we do this, but we don't do the presentation. And then I told my friend, he's like, but why? I mean,
Yeah, I
it
mean,
was
well, I
like,
mean, no one else can really present. It's very difficult for someone
and
else
it
to present your work unless they are
exactly.
very much into the project.
Exactly. And it was like, but it's supposed that they have to give the presentation because they did the job. They know the results. They know.
But so yeah, so the idea is even for the academic institutions, like if they
They
are,
like to talk.
uh huh,
Eh, And the answer was of managers. He was like, yeah, but
yeah.
the answer was they
So yeah,
don't
so
like to
going
talk.
back into like
These
the,
skills, right?
so like how to build for the academics, so how to build institutions and how to build departments that adapt to the changing market conditions. Um, because we no longer, for example, like web development, the way that web development is now, it's not the way that it was 10 years ago, in that a lot of the things have already been automated, and you can easily build a site using something like Squarespace and Wix and a few other things. And that's where it's going to go with data science and AI, is that in the future you're going to be able to very quickly build things. You just have to know and understand enough of both sides, like the business side and the needs.
Exactly.
So that, I think that that's where like these things are going. So that's why we have so many packages. That's why we have now people from non-traditional spaces contributing to data science, and it's going to keep going in that direction, because the future is that, at least like I think where the large companies are working on, is that in the future, like you won't need to actually code, like
Yeah.
it's not natural, like the coding process is not natural, but like you do need it for the next like 10 years or so. but but then it's more about like solving problems. So like how do you go again, like using things like the same thing that what Wix and what Squarespace does now. How do you know enough to solve a problem, to solve a business problem, to build a product that solves a
Exactly.
problem? So okay,
Exactly.
we're good.
Okay. I think we're good.
Okay,
I don't know. Please, everybody, come back tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm gonna give the seminar. It's gonna be about the MLTC that Andy complained the last week that I did it really boring. I'm gonna try to do it better, but it's a complex topic. But I hope you come back tomorrow. And Andy, thank you so much. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
And thank you, everybody.